House of EdTech, episode 39.
Hi, this is Katrina Keene, Instructional Technology Consultant and Director of Innovation at Canterbury School, Fort Myers, and you're listening to the House of EdTech with Chris Nessie.
Support for House of EdTech comes from todaysmeet.com. To add back-channeling to your classroom today, go to todaysmeet.com/houseofedtech and by helphub.me. Check out the internet's premier online tutoring marketplace by visiting helphub.me. Welcome to the House of EdTech podcast. I am your host, Christopher Nessie, and the House of EdTech explores how technology is changing the way teachers teach and the impact that technology is having in education. My objectives include discussing technology that is changing our classrooms and schools and sharing tools and tips you can hear about today and use tomorrow. I talk to teachers, leaders, and creators like you and have them share their stories. The purpose? Whether you use it or not, technology is changing the way we teach and how our students learn. And coming up inside this episode of the House of EdTech, of course I have my EdTech thought, my EdTech recommendation, and of course the House of EdTech VIP. But before we get into the meat and potatoes of the episode, first I just need to say thank you, and thank you. On Thursday, July 2nd, 2015, it was announced that I am the recipient of a 2015 BAMI Educators Voice Award for Talk Show Host of the Year. How cool is that? I'd like to extend my sincerest congratulations to all the other award recipients, especially the following, because these are great educators from New Jersey, and New Jersey is well represented in this year's awards. So, special congratulations to Glenn Robbins, who was the recipient of the Middle School Principal of the Year from Northfield, New Jersey, and that's just outside of Atlantic City. Miss Rebecca McClellan Crawley, Middle School Teacher of the Year from West Windsor Plainsboro School District, New Jersey. And a good friend of the program, Mr. Jay Eitner, who was the recipient of the Superintendent of the Year Award. And again, he is from Lower Alloways Creek, New Jersey. And I'll say it again, New Jersey is well represented in all these BAMI Educators Voice Award categories. And we will all find out later this year if these translate into actual BAMI awards. I want to thank you for your support during the nominations process and for your involvement as an active member of this, the House of EdTech community. I couldn't be here without you, and all I can say is thank you, and I will continue to create compelling and engaging content, and I do it for you. So, thank you. Since the last episode, ISTE 2015 has taken place. My ISTE experience started on Friday, June 26th, when I attended and presented at the TCT conference, and that stands for Tomorrow's Classrooms Today, and this event was put on by the Evolving Educators Group from New Jersey. So special thank you to Scott Rocco, Billy Krakauer, and Brad Curry, who are the Evolving Educators, for putting on a fantastic conference in the city of Philadelphia right before the ISTE conference. I got to present my recent workshop that I've been kind of doing throughout this last school year on creating content as opposed to just simply curating it. And I had a really great time. The entire Ed Justice League was there. We had a great time in Philly. We got to do breakfast, lunch, hang out in some sessions together, and it was just an overall great time. And that led up to the ISTE conference, which I got to attend on Monday, June 29th. Got to go to Philadelphia, and I wanted to go to Philly and have those face-to-face conversations that I really enjoy. As much fun as it is to interact with people on Twitter, it is so much more rewarding to have a handshake, a hug, and a warm conversation with somebody that you have already had conversations with, but having them face to face at a table, on a bench, over a sandwich is just something special. I got to meet a lot of people who have been on the podcast, like Angela Watson, Tom Murray, Spike Cook, Jenna Klein. The list. I mean, I met so many people who have been right here on and in the house of EdTech. So that was really cool. One of the biggest highlights for me was the Podcasters Meetup. Now, the actual meetup, I'm going to be honest and transparent, it was a little disappointing because it was not what I thought it was going to be. It was more of a session where there were a lot of people, and this is no fault of their own, but a lot of people attended thinking, oh, this is going to be like how-to podcast. And there were a number of people who showed up to it, including myself, who just wanted to kind of talk podcasting and, geek out about podcasting gear. How do you do this? Why do you do it that way with other podcasters? So actually I wound up leaving the actual meetup, and we kind of had a little informal powwow outside the room in the hallway of the Pennsylvania Convention Center. So I had a little mini podcasters meetup with Angela Watson, Stacy Lindis, Matt Miller from ditchthattextbook.com, who he was really awesome to meet. As you know, he's been the source of a couple of my EdTech thoughts here on the podcast. So it was really great to meet Matt. And also I got to meet another podcaster, Jennifer Gonzalez, who I was not previously aware of. And she runs a podcast called The Cult of Pedagogy, which can be found at cultofpedagogy.com. And I'm subscribed, I'm listening to her content, and she's got about 21 episodes in her first season. And that was really cool to meet another podcaster who is super passionate, as is Angela Watson, of course, with her Truth for Teachers podcast. And also Ellen Deem, who is a first grade teacher and a fan of consuming podcasts. So it was really great for about an hour to just sit and talk podcasting. And something that I'd like to share with you from this conversation is something that Angela Watson said. I'm paraphrasing because, silly me, I didn't record it. And even though I had, my iPad and my microphone with me, Angela said that about 3 or 4 years ago, that the conversation surrounding makerspaces took place in the same fashion that we were having our podcast discussion. And that was a few people, maybe about 10 max, sitting on a floor off to the side talking about makerspaces. And I agree with what Angela said, and that is in the next 3 to 4 to 5 years, podcasting will be a huge part of the ISTE conference, and it is going to basically explode in education in terms of creating content and specifically creating podcast content. Now, in addition to this awesome little impromptu podcasters meetup, I also did take the microphone on the floor of the expo hall and had a couple of conversations that I did take the time to record, and I'm going to share them with you now. I'm going to be sharing 2 conversations with people from TAC. First, Andrea Trivisano, who was a previous guest of the podcast, and I will link to the episode that Andrea appeared on in the show notes for this episode. And I also met another associate of Andrea from TAC, and that would be Jane Friars, who is a community manager and works closely with student users of TAC. And the third conversation that I'm going to share with you is a conversation with the Black Canary herself from the Ed Justice League, Danny Raskin. Danny had the privilege of presenting at the Google for Education area of the Expo Convention floor hall, and she's going to share what she talked about for Google and education. So let's take a listen into these 3 conversations from the floor of ISTE 2015. I am happy to be standing here in person with Andrea Trivisano from TAC.com, who is here in Philadelphia talking about TAC. And you may remember her as a former guest of the podcast. Andrea, how are you doing? Welcome to Philadelphia.
I'm doing great, Chris. Thanks for having me. Love Philadelphia. We're having a blast here at the Expo Hall.
Now, again, you guys are here in the Expo Hall, and you are talking about TAC, which is awesome. What is new and exciting that is happening with TAC that we talked about already that I wanted to record?
Well, yeah, we're doing a lot of cool stuff this summer as we get ready for back to school leading into the next school year. One of the things that we have recently launched is our Refer and Earn program. So this is for any TAC user who has used TAC, loves TAC, wants to spread the word about TAC. You can actually get yourself a unique URL, share TAC with friends and family, get them to sign up, and when you do, you start unlocking incentives. So anything from features that you're unlocking just on your profile or your account to specific swag that we're creating only for you as a power user who's sharing TAC. and so on. So we have a lot of really cool incentives and a lot of ways for you to earn awesome rewards on TAC.
Teachers, as we know, like awesome, and we like awesome rewards, and I've never met a teacher who says no to swag. Now, while you've been in Philadelphia, you've been in here for a couple of days, what have you liked most about Philly?
Philly is a great city. It's a big city with a small atmosphere, so just walking around, seeing some of the ISTE attendees and being able to see them face-to-face has been probably the best part for us. And not even just in the expo hall, but out and about. You know, we're hosting different get-togethers where we can meet some of our power users, our biggest advocates, face-to-face and not just see their Twitter avatars, which a lot of times will happen because, you know, we're a digital tool, we're communicating digitally a lot of the time. So this really gives us the opportunity to meet face-to-face and to really foster that relationship and get to know each other better.
Now, one of the things that we talked about when I made contact and I got to embrace you in a, House of EdTech hug, which is, I guess, what I'll call it, we talked about ways that teachers are using the word TAC in interesting ways to make hashtags, and I'll use one, a TAC-ism. What are some of your favorite TAC combination phrases?
That's a new one. I like TAC-ism. I've heard tacky, which, is not necessarily my favorite, but they just add the Y on. Tactastic and tacorific were probably some of my favorites that I've heard. And then today we have one of our advocate presenters at the booth, Shayna Glass, who is with the Aldine ISD in Texas. And she is using hers as attack. How can you attack your world with students and teachers? And so she just added the A onto TAC, and, it changes the meaning. So seeing a lot of cool ones. Those are probably my favorites.
Very cool. Well, Andrea, I am so glad that I got to meet you because we've had a number of Skype conversations. You were on the show, and this was awesome.
Yeah, in person's always better than over whatever communication device. So this has been really cool to meet you, Chris. Appreciate you helping to spread the word of TAC, and you are welcome at the booth anytime.
I better be welcome. I'm standing 3 feet from it, so
you're not leaving.
We're gonna stop recording, and I'm gonna learn more about TAC to share with all of you. And now I'm talking with Jane Friars from TAC. She's the community manager, and she's going to share some information about what she does at TAC. So, Jane, how you doing?
Good. How are you, Christopher?
I am doing fantastic, and you can just call me Chris because I'm not in trouble, so we're okay with that. Talk about what you do with TAC and the kids.
Sure. So basically, as a community manager, I wear many hats. I work with TAC social media, so I am responsible for updating it, keeping people aware of our new features and additions to TAC EDU.
What that means is Jane is the TAC Twitter account. So talk to Jane when you talk to TAC.
Yeah, so if you are looking for an RT, I'm your girl. So basically, as you mentioned, you talked with Andrea, and she's in charge of partnerships and kind of communicating with the teachers and bringing them on TAC. So once TAC is introduced in the classroom, obviously students are using TAC as well, which means we have a variety of teens on TAC. So I am in charge and responsible for communicating with the teens on a daily basis via our TAC platform. So whether it be through a TAC stream, an actual page that they've created and have a question, or are interested in learning how to use a specific feature on the site, I am their girl who tells them how to do it, shows them how to do it, and make sure they're happy on TAC. So anyone who has questions or is trying to learn something or has ideas, we're always encouraging feedback, and teens love to give it. So I'm responsible for taking care of them, making sure they're happy, and all that good stuff.
Now, when you talk about your interaction with teens and students on TAC, what are some of the creative ways that you're seeing young people use the platform?
That's a great question. So they're introduced to TAC in the classroom. So obviously they're initially using it for assignments, blogs, newsletters, things like that. But once they take TAC outside of the classroom, they get really creative and use it on their own. So we see a lot of students use it to show their favorite things and talk about themselves and give shout outs to their best friends and say what their favorite YouTube videos are or favorite Vine star is, and really use it as their hub for all their social media. So they're connecting their Instagram accounts and adding their friends on it and communicating and making plans and using it for events. Really, tech is their oyster. The world is their oyster, as they say, and they use it for anything, all of the above. So it's really cool to see them just take it and run with it.
That is great news. As you and Andrea, and I think a lot of people at Tech know, I'm a huge supporter of the platform. And Andrea talked about the referral program to continue to encourage teachers like myself and other great teachers who are using it to keep sharing it. And I, too, have the same interaction with my own students, and any student and teacher I've shown it to are amazed at how simple it is to use and how creative they can be with something that is, at its core, simple. So thank you for keeping it simple.
Yeah, no problem. That's our goal.
Awesome. Thank you, Ms. Friars, and we will talk to you soon.
All right. Thank you, Christopher. I mean, Chris.
All right. I am back here on the floor of ISTE, and I am standing here with Danny Raskin, a former House of EdTech VIP, and she just presented at the Google for Education area on the floor of ISTE, and she was talking about, well, since I have her right here, Danny, what were you talking about?
I was talking about Google Classroom and some of the advanced ways that you can use Google Classroom.
Can you share one or a few of those ways?
Sure. So first of all is co-teaching. You are able to add co-teachers into your classroom to help split the grading and the...
Wait, real quick. Are these new features, or are you just going over features that exist?
The co-teaching feature is a new feature that came out a few months ago. And so you can split grading. You can both post assignments. Another feature or another thing you can do with it is posting flipped classroom materials, so you can post a video, post a Google form. Another thing that you can do is posting assessments, so tests or quizzes, and those are three of my favorite ways to use Google Classroom.
Now, I'm already connected with you, as you know, because, well, we're connected.
I am familiar with you, yes.
What are some ways that people can reach out to you who are interested in more Google information?
The best way is through Twitter. So my Twitter is @MissRaskin, RASKIN.
Awesome. And are you having fun here at ISTE?
This is amazing. I'm in the Disneyland of educational technology, and I couldn't be happier.
Awesome. And what are some of the big plans you have coming up this summer, which may or may not have happened yet as I record this?
Oh, that's right. Okay, so depending on when you're listening, if this is after July 25th, I am married. And if it's not, then I'm not married, but I'm getting married, and then I am going on a honeymoon to Bali in Indonesia.
That is awesome. Danny, thank you so much for a few minutes of your time.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you to Andrea, Jane, and Danny for taking time to speak to me on the floor at ISTE. And I've actually started to put the call out on Twitter, and I'd like to include some information from you if you attended ISTE, and of course, if you're a listener here of the House of EdTech. So what I've put out on Twitter, and I'm going to make the request here, if you attended ISTE 2015, I want to hear from you. And what I'd like you to do is call the House of EdTech listener feedback line. The number is 732-903-4869. And what I'd like you to do is leave me a message that I can include in a later episode this summer. So I'd like you to tell me your name, your Twitter handle, and what you learned at ISTE 2015. And I'd also like to open it up to people who maybe couldn't go to ISTE, but you were participating in the Not at ISTE hashtag. And just make note of that in your message, whether you were at ISTE or not at ISTE. And I'm going to include these messages from you in a future episode of the House of EdTech before school starts. I've already gotten a couple of messages, but I'd like to be able to dedicate a good portion of an upcoming episode to you and your voice. So call 732-903-4869 and let me know what you learned at ISTE 2015. Also, in terms of podcasting, there is a new episode of Podcast PD, the podcast, and our theme episode for the July 4th weekend was Summer PD, and AJ, Stacy, and I had on our Ed Justice League colleagues, Adam Schoenbart and Danny Raskin, the Green Arrow, and of course the Black Canary, and they talked about some great opportunities for summertime professional development based on the calendar that they maintain, which can be found at edtechcal.nynj.com, and you can head over to that website and you can check out a calendar that chronicles and pulls together all of the PD opportunities in the New York and New Jersey area. You can listen to that episode of Podcast PD over on Spreaker, which you can get as an app on your Android and iOS devices. And you can also listen to the episode on edupodcastnetwork.com. And now let's get into my featured content for this episode, and that is my conversation with Miss Casey Cohen from Philadelphia, and we are talking app smashing. Casey Cohen has been teaching secondary English for 8 years, and she's been a high school English teacher at the String Theory School for the last 2 years. She writes and publishes high school English and humanities courses in iTunes U, which are grounded in project-based learning by way of iPad apps. And I would be remiss if I didn't also recognize Casey for being a proud member of the Apple Distinguished Educator class for 2015. Congratulations, Casey, and welcome to the House of EdTech.
Thank you so much. Thank you for inviting me. It's great to be here.
I am very excited to have you here because we met at EdCamp Philly back in May, and that was just a great day. But for me, I was really happy when I came in on your session, which was all about app smashing and the wonderful things that you're doing at the String Theory Charter School in Philly.
Thank you. Thanks. I'm so glad you enjoyed it.
So now let's dive right in.
Okay.
As I said before we kind of hit record, the whole point of this episode and to have you on is to talk about and introduce more teachers to the concept of app smashing. So What is app smashing?
So app smashing is the idea is that students are creating content in more than one app. So they're starting with one app and then they're taking what they did in that app and putting it in another app. And the idea, and I'll go through some specifics in a few minutes, but the idea is that they can use the integration of the apps and the integration of more than one type of media to show higher level understanding. Students, I highly believe in Howard Gardner's idea of the multiple intelligence theory. So students have strengths and are able to connect to material on all different types of levels. So if they can take an app that's going to highlight and feature artistic skills and drawing, and they can put that together with music and they can put that together with words, then the idea is that integration can help them show their understanding, not just on a basic level, but on a higher level than they originally could to start.
Now, in your presentation, you made it very clear that you teach English, and some of the things you showed in that presentation blew my mind because it took learning English and that type of content to a whole new level, because what kids are doing in your class is so much more than composition and writing.
Yes.
Talk a little bit about some of these awesome ways that you're using app smashing and technology.
So let's just take one basic example. This is the idea of a found poem. So students in our 9th grade curriculum read The Color of Water by James McBride. So that book is a nonfiction text, and James McBride tells his kind of coming-of-age story, and he integrates that with his mother's story, and it's how they come together. As we're reading this book, one of the concepts that we teach is the idea of a constructed response. So we ask students a question, and then we ask them to support their answer with textual evidence. So one way to do that is in a traditional written paragraph. Another way to do that is by asking them a question. So the same type of question, asking them to use their 2 pieces of textual evidence, and then asking them to use more than one type of app to show their demonstration. So this is one of my favorite. One of the examples that you saw was one of my favorite pieces of work that a student ever created. And she was responding to how Ruth McBride kind of grew up and matured. And so what she did was created a stop motion video. So she, and to create the stop motion video, she hand drew images just on paper, and she cut them out, and then she took photographs of them using the camera app. So that was kind of that's app smashing, taking the first app that we're going to use is the camera. And so she has these images, and then she uses stop motion to take images of them. And she had about 350 images that she put together. And then she created recordings in GarageBand. So the answer to the question is about how Ruth shows her independence. She moves away from home, and she compares it to kind of the imagery of a bird flying away. she could have just explained this in a written paragraph, but she used the image of a girl and the girl growing older and then the girl riding on a train, the girl turning. She actually animated the girl turning into a bird and was able to record her own sound effects in GarageBand. She put them all together. And she also animated 2 pieces of textual evidence into the whole work so that at the end, I clearly understand what she's talking about. And to me, it shows her understanding and her passion and her ability to connect with the text on a higher level than just writing a written paragraph. But yet she still, because this is really important to me as a teacher, she still showed those basic skills of, do I understand the content? Can I form a response? Can I support it with textual evidence? And that's what English is all about.
That is just one example of that wasn't just you teaching one student. You had a whole class of similar projects and experiences.
Yeah.
What is some of the feedback that you've gotten in these years that you've been doing this from the actual students doing such amazing products and not products, doing amazing projects? What do kids say?
They love it. And the coolest thing is that it gives them choice and ownership. And so part of my story is that I had never held an iPad before working at string theory schools. So this is my second year working with this type of technology. And it's made me more passionate about education because I can see the students becoming more passionate about education and about learning. I think what really facilitates that is the idea of choice. So I can say to the students, this is what I want you to do. I want you to answer this question, and I want you to use 2 pieces of textual evidence. And I'm not going to tell you how to do it. I want you to figure it out. That's where the app smashing comes in. I can give them certain requirements. I can say, I want you to use 2 pieces of media. I want you to use 2 apps, or I want you to use 3 apps. And this is where the higher level understanding comes in. I'm not saying you have to write a paragraph and this is what the paragraph looks like. I'm saying I want you to figure it out. And so the students then get more excited because they're all going to show me their work in a different way. And sometimes they can work collaboratively. So sometimes they can figure this out together. So the idea is it becomes more original. They get more excited about it, and I think it facilitates their creativity. So it all works together. As they get more excited, they get more creative, they show higher level learning, and then it's kind of, I wouldn't say it's a cycle, but it's more a spiral because it's up leveling. They love the option to choose their own apps. They love that I don't say, you have to do stop motion, you have to use the camera app. They love that I say, I want you to use what's going to work to show me how you understand the material the best. So we have a program that we're running right now called self-service. And so the teachers can basically say, these are the apps that we want in self-service. It runs kind of like the App Store, but in a protected way, so that not every app that's ever been invented is out there for the students, but yet they still have the idea and the potential to go out and to research and to see what app they want. And if there's not an app in self-service, students have their phones, students have their own iPads, and I always encourage them to go out and to research, to see what's out there, and to show. I love when they show me and teach me new apps, and it's as easy as me filling out a Google form saying, this is an app I'd like to see in self-service, and then our tech team has it in there within 24 hours, so the system works really well. That
was something that I remember being in the session with you where I didn't. Somebody asked that question, like, how do your students get the apps? And how you describe self-service seemed like a really cool way to make more available to the kids. And the fact that you have, teachers like yourself and how they run your school listening and getting input from the students, that's very valuable, and it's not too common.
The technology that we have, I think, as I said, has made me a more passionate educator, but I think all of the things, why I wanted to be a teacher in the first place still hold true, and this just makes using the technology kind of affirms them and makes them stronger. So I've always believed in giving students ownership. I've always believed that when we give students choice and the ability to facilitate their own learning, they're going to be more vested and in turn learn more. And that now that they can go out and find their apps, and I don't just say, create a poster or write an essay, and they have this choice, I think it makes them not only better students, but it's going to make them more successful human beings in life.
A classic English style question is to do like compare and contrast. So I'm going to ask you to kind of do that a little bit now.
Okay, great.
You've been in the string theory school for 2 years, but you taught English for years before that.
Yes.
Casey, can you talk a little bit about what your teaching was like before you got this position at the string theory school?
I was afraid of technology. I've taught in 3 different schools before here. And at each school, I didn't have a lot of technology available to me. I had some, and it kind of grew with every school where I worked. So my first school, I pretty much had an LCD projector. And I thought I was using technology when I said I would show movies and I would play CDs and they would listen to music. And that to me was using technology. In the second school that I worked in, it was actually a one-to-one school where students had laptops. There wasn't any type of support. So there wasn't anyone coming to me saying, this is a really cool project you can do, or this is how we can use our technology to enhance the student's learning experience. And so I gave students research. They were using their computers every day. Some teachers didn't even have the kids have their laptops open, but I wanted them to use them. I think it's amazing they had the technology, but it was more about the research and the paper writing and production of material that already existed in my head. And the next school I worked in, I had a smart board. But again, no one ever took the time to sit down and show me how to use it. And I was timid and I was afraid, so I didn't spend a lot of time using it. And I don't think any of those pieces of technology actually benefited the students' learning experience. I think in all three of those schools, with or without the technology, they probably would have learned the same material. But at String Theory, we have an amazing support system. And so our instructional technology innovator took the time to meet with me individually just when we started 2 years ago. She could see where I was. I was honest and totally transparent and said, I've never held an iPad. I need help. And so she took the time to meet with me and to kind of give me some ideas, to show me how to create content using Keynotes, etc. And she also took the time to meet with our department. And so she helped the department figure out how we could use our strengths to contribute to this collaborative. And this is another difference. Here, we're 100% collaborative, so we're writing courses together. So it's not just me writing an English curriculum, it's the English team writing all of the English courses. So I think it's those two components. It's the idea of having the professional development really on a daily basis, even if it's something as small as our innovation specialists coming in to talk us through some project ideas. And if we say we know about an app, but we need some help kind of figuring out how to use it, she's there and she's working with us. And it's also the idea of the collaboration. So I could have one idea and then I could bring it to the department and then we're all talking it through and it starts one place and then it goes up 5 to 7 levels or 10 levels by the end of the conversation. So I think there's two defining words that really hit home about string theory, and it's the idea of innovation and collaboration. And it's all of those elements coming together that up-levels my teaching and the students' learning experience.
Casey, I'll be honest, and that doesn't mean I haven't been honest before. If I could bottle up, or we could find a way that anybody could bottle up that mentality and your passion, we would really change the face of education. When you said initially in the presentation that you hadn't held an iPad prior to coming to this school, I was like in shock. And then I said, okay, now I want to see what she's doing now, because I was interested. And what you do in that mentality is truly amazing and remarkable, because there are people who will go their whole career and never change anything about how they teach or their approach to education. That 180 or just that introduction to technology, it's been great for you, and you've done so many amazing things.
Yeah, and it's kind of invigorated I've always been a passionate educator, but this has made me more passionate, and it's instilled in me the desire to keep wanting to learn more and to keep trying new things. And, when I get excited about something, the students get excited about something. So I want to, that's my goal, is just to keep learning as much as I can and bringing it to the students.
Now, the other point that you mentioned when you talked about the collaboration piece is how it's not just you writing a course, but it's your team of English teachers or the math teachers. Like you're all working together. Exactly. Now, one of the new ways that you're doing that, and it's not really new, but new technology that you're taking advantage of, is iTunes U. I was very interested in that piece of the presentation as well, because again, you and your team and what you're doing at your school is phenomenal, and I'm jealous and envious, and I wish I was a part of something like that. Talk about what you guys are doing with iTunes U and how it works.
iTunes U is another game changer. So iTunes U facilitates, I think, strong teaching because it facilitates clear communication from the teacher side to the student side. And it's been about figuring out the workflow. So as teachers, we create our content and we write our courses, we put them in iTunes U, and then the students go from there. They create their works, they create their content, and it's about how all of these things work together. It's about how do we give the students the choice through iTunes U? How do we make our lessons clear so that the students have the inspiration and the content they need to create their own material? The other cool thing about iTunes U is that it's published, and that it can be published. One of our also defining features is that we believe in transparency. So iTunes U is it's an amazing resource for educators, because even if you're not writing courses on iTunes U, you can research iTunes U. You can see all of the amazing things that are out there in Pennsylvania. Other schools have courses out there. Now our courses are out there, so it facilitates this a greater community of collaboration that's larger than just our school.
It definitely takes community to a whole new level, because now the community encompasses the whole world. If you go to the show notes for this episode, you will see links to the iTunes University courses for all of these, so that way you can check them out. Now, how do these ideas create the higher level learning experience that you've been talking about?
So students writing a paper, can show their idea on one level. I think students using art can show potentially higher understanding if that's their multiple intelligence, if that is where their strength is. If music is student strength, I think if I ask students to show me the tone of a piece of literature, they could use music and that would show me the tone. But I think in terms of communication, when students are able to integrate these different forms of media, that's what makes them strong communicators, and that's what shows the highest level of understanding. Would it be helpful to talk about some projects that kind of show this off?
Absolutely.
All right. So you just mentioned this humanities seminar, and that was also a new course that we taught this year. The idea is we took the English 10 course and we took the history course for grade 10, which was American history, and we united them thematically. So a social studies teacher and I taught this course collaboratively together every day. We had all 50 students. And while the content was different, it wasn't necessarily an American literature course. We tried to take the big ideas and have students connect these themes with these projects. And I think that was one of our biggest successes of showing this higher level understanding. So an example, we started off the year with September 11th, and they learned about that kind of from the history side. And from the English side, we read a novel about the event called Extremely Loud and Incredibly Close. And we then went into the Civil War. So we created these big essential questions, such as what does trauma do to communities? How does trauma impact people? And so for these final projects and products, they had to somehow come up with a big overarching answer to this question. And so with the help and inspiration of our innovation specialist, she pointed us in the direction of the Apple Distinguished Educators series and collection, The One Best Thing. And we found an example in that, the 6-shot story. And in that project, the idea is that you take 6 shots or 6 small video clips and you unite them with 6 words, and that's based on Ernest Hemingway's The 6-Word Novel. And you integrate these ideas and you come up with an answer to the question. So we had students do that just after this project. How does trauma influence communities and impact people? So they had 6 words and they had to give 2 examples from English, 2 examples from history, and 2 examples from their own lives. And they could work with a team. But they had to come up with an answer to this huge, enormous question using 6 words. And this is also where the app smashing came into being. So they had to create images, which they then edited in various photo apps. We use Snapseed, we use Pixlr, and various other photo editing apps. Some of them took movies, which they then used some of the slow motion and stop motion editing features to either slow down or speed up. And then they basically put all of these ideas into iMovie, where they could then go in and edit some more. They could bring in the music, they could bring in this, they could bring in words and other narration. And they could also put themselves in the video. So just the idea, and with all of the wonders that technology has done for us, I still think, nothing beats the expression of a student's face. Like, that really shows it all. So they could be in the movie as actors and actresses showing what they understood. So this project, I think, did a good job of showing high-level understanding because it integrated English, integrated history, and their own stories. It was an exercise in being concise with the 6 words, and it was also an exercise with the technology. What apps were they going to use, and how are they going to bring them all together? And then they could just bring in their own personality with their music and putting themselves in the video. And I think the students, it worked well from their side as well.
And it totally speaks to the point you made about ownership, when students can take control of their learning and their assignments and what they're producing. And the examples that were in the presentation, they were phenomenal. And it was even to the point where you wanted to show more, but we were pressed for time or whatever. Right. So I know I was interested to see more. Casey, when you talk about the 6-shot story, where does that idea come from?
So this was just an amazing example of that global community that we spoke about earlier. So our innovation specialist met with the social studies teacher and me. We talked through some ideas, and she directed us to the Apple Distinguished Educators series, The One Best Thing. And she pointed us out to Don Goebel's idea of the 6-shot story, and we thought that project would work perfectly with us. So it was a true collaborative team effort, and it worked really well for the students.
And when you talk about now collaborating with a social studies teacher and an English teacher, that seems like a good match of content areas.
Yes.
In your opinion, what other content areas do you think either English could collaborate with, or other subject areas should be collaborating or think about collaborating teacher to teacher and then getting those kids together?
We were talking about some ideas for next year, and I want to take this collaboration to new levels. So I think collaborating with theater, because we're really lucky where we have the majors program. So we have vocal and theater, digital design, science and technology. So we have all these areas to collaborate with. I think theater is another natural one that works really well with English and history. I think that the world, the sky is the limit. I think it could be really cool to do a collaboration with English and math. Don't know where that would start, but I just think for the students, if the students are able to see a connection, then it makes the material richer for them. I think a great starting point is the idea of argument, and this is something I learned in my studies in my principal certification program this year as I was learning about how to observe all the content areas. The idea of forming an argument fits really naturally into all of the content areas. Scientists use it when they're, making a hypothesis and working on an experiment. We use it in English and history all the time. Math, we use it in math to create a proof in geometry and to find the solution. So I think that the idea of argument could be a really cool starting point, and that could be something that spreads throughout the school within our culture. But I love the idea of collaboration, and I think this year, the humanities seminar was a good starting point, but we can take that to new levels.
And I can only wait to see the new levels, because now that we're connected, we're going to have to, absolutely, definitely stay in touch and keep these things updated.
Please. Yes, absolutely.
Now, before I let you go, I wrote down a couple of notes here as we were talking.
Okay.
For teachers and the listeners who are interested in app smashing, what advice do you have for the listener who wants to get started? Where should they begin?
So think about different types, like what apps are you going to use? What's the purpose? Okay. Don't just create an app smash to bring, lots of different ideas together. Think about what you want students to create. And think about apps in different categories. So you can think about apps that are going to create images or help you sketch. So, for example, sketching apps or drawing apps. And, some of the ones that we've used, we use Notability, we use UPad, we use Paper by 53, Sketchbook Pro. Those all create works of art. And then there's the idea of photo editing apps. So I mentioned before, we use Pixlr, we use Pick Express, we use Glaze, different types of photo editing apps. So it's the idea of figuring out what apps go in what category. Then there's sound apps like GarageBand, and then there's video apps like iMovie, and then there's the writing apps. And then I have to just mention this one because it served so many purposes, but we love the Martha Stewart Craft Studio app, where students created a scrapbook of Chris McCandless from Into the Wild, his journey, so they could bring in original photography. That in itself was an app smash because they could bring in their own photos just into that app. So it's the idea, I think, and then there's Explain Everything, but figuring out what do you want students to do and understand and show. And then it's about taking some time to just go into the App Store and look at the apps and try the apps and have the students try the apps for you. Start small. So spend a day having students work with photo editing apps. Say, I want you to show, for English, I want you to show me the imagery in this story. Great. Go out and find a photo editing app or a drawing app and mess around with that. And then start small. So you can have an app smash just for that one. You can start with one photo editing app and then go to another. And now you have the photo edit. You have the piece of art that starts in one place and goes to another place and looks, richer and fuller because you've worked on it in two areas. So now you have that background, right? Now you kind of understand what the idea of app smashing looks like. So then you take it to the next level and you're like, I want students to show me that they can understand this story using words and images and music. So then you have to figure out what's going to unite all of those ideas. Well, iMovie can unite all of those ideas. In iMovie, you can record music, you can and you can bring in images, and you can either record your voice in the background or some of those images can be in words. So it's about figuring out what tools. iMovie is great for that. The Martha Stewart app is great to unite because you can also bring in words and images that way. ThingLink is another really great app to unite ideas. In ThingLink, you can have a central photo, and then you can push out to either links or images or writings that way. So I think start small is the best advice I can have. Start to figure out what apps you like and how those apps are going to best show the understanding. That's one piece of advice. The next piece of advice is keep the door wide open for the students. Don't give them as many requirements, I think, generally as you're used to. Have the students, have the door wide open for them. Have them explore. Spend a day in class where the homework for the students is to go out and find their favorite photo editing app, and then have them share that app with the class the next day. And then have the students work collaboratively, so they're teaching each other. And then when they're presenting their project, instead of just presenting the project, have them explain their work process and their workflow. And then it gives the student, everyone else an idea to try for the next time. And I guess the other piece of advice is don't be afraid of failure. Don't be afraid of not everything is going to work perfectly, but it's a matter of trying and failing and then learning and growing and seeing how you can make it a stronger and richer experience for the next time, and always be looking for the next app that you want to try. So that's my favorite part about this. Like I said earlier, I always want to learn new things. I never want to stop learning and growing because I consider myself a lifelong learner and student too. And so always be open to learning new things from students, from administrators, from colleagues, from your PLN and your PLC and from everyone, and then keep bringing those ideas back to your students.
Casey, that is fantastic advice. So I'm going to recommend that everybody who may normally listen to the episodes once definitely start to hit that rewind 30-second button and make sure that you understand that advice that Casey just imparted on us all. And my takeaway from that is don't be afraid. I think that's the big theme. Don't be afraid. And that's something that I preach here every episode of the podcast is, technology is not difficult. Just give it a try. And you really can't go wrong because you will learn by making mistakes. And we promote that idea in our students, and we should be examples of that in our own teaching.
Yes, absolutely. And also just to keep an open mind. So not necessarily be looking for one, have an open mind so that when the work is created, you're not disappointed because it's not what you originally wanted. Your mind is just open to all these new possibilities, and you don't know what's going to come next. And then you're just pleasantly surprised.
Casey, that might be asking a lot if we're going to tell people to not only not be afraid, but to be open-minded as well. Before I let you go, how can people now get in touch with you and pick your brain and get some advice?
Please get in touch with me. I would love to talk and correspond with anyone to share ideas. You can find me on Twitter at CICohen. You can email me at ccohen@stringtheoryschools.org. And you can explore and look for our courses in iTunes U. And I am always looking to collaborate with people, to share ideas, to learn, to grow, to create partnerships. And so I look forward to getting in touch with anyone who's interested.
Actually, based on what you just said about getting in touch about the courses and stuff, I almost think, and here's a bonus thought, the next level would be designing and collaborating and building a course from two teachers in two different schools.
Absolutely.
And then using that content. That would be awesome.
That's the idea. And that's one of the that's why iTunes U is, I think, we're just it's going to create so many opportunities, and the door is really just starting to open, and I'm so excited to see where it's going to take us.
Me too, because then that means this could be App Smashing 101 with Casey Cohen, part 1, and then it opens the door for a return appearance on the podcast.
That would be great.
Well, Casey, thank you so much again for coming onto the House of EdTech. And as I just said, I mean, the door's open, and I will have you back on to talk more about this fantastic topic.
I would be honored. This was fabulous. Thank you so much for having me.
And now for my EdTech thought. How to use a simple pocket notebook to improve your life. Yes, that's right. I said how to use a pocket notebook. It's not electric. It's not your phone. It is not a technical device in any shape, way, or form. I recently read an article on lifehacker.com about how to do just this, how to use a simple notebook to improve your life. Some of the highlights include that a notebook, again, just simple pen and paper, will allow you to not forget names or phone numbers or other contact information of people that you encounter. Now, yes, you could put that information in your phone, but I'm sure you've been in my shoes where your phone's not charged, or just for some reason, you just don't have access to something where you can just quickly type it up and get somebody's contact information real easy. From time to time, it is just faster to have a piece of paper and a pen to get that information from somebody. You can also use it to discover a task that you need to do. Write it down, and it's immediately saved, and that can help you to not forget about it. And again, this could be faster than taking out your smartphone or your tablet and opening up a note or setting a reminder or using some virtual assistant on your device. Another advantage to using paper is if you have a fleeting idea, writing it down very quickly, you're not going to lose it. And you won't have to work any harder to try and remember it. A great place to keep this notebook when you're not walking around would be bedside. You ever wake up in the middle of the night and you have a great idea, and gosh, it's annoying to turn on that iPad or that smartphone. Just, you can quickly jot something down, not wake yourself up. Life is good, and you can go back to bed. And your notebook can always be with you. You can use it for brainstorming, which is really an effective way to organize your ideas. And writing it down, again, the whole deal here with this is it is much faster than, taking out and recording a note or typing something up on your device. Now, the notebook that this article recommends is the Field Notes Pocket Notebook. Some of the advantages based on the article are that these little notebooks from Field Notes, they are bound by staples rather than the old school traditional metal spiral, so they're really solid, really stable. The paper quality is very good. It stands up really well to living in your pocket for a few weeks, and it really doesn't matter what you're doing. The paper will hold up. They're also available in graph paper format. And you can usually find these in packs of 3, and these notebooks are about 48 pages each, and a 3-pack goes for about $9.99. Now, something I'm really also into, and in terms of, writing stuff down and keeping small notes, is the idea of having a good pen. And the pen recommended in this article is the Uniball Signo 207 Ultra Micro. If you go to the show notes for this episode, I will have a link to these notebooks and also these pens. And if you pick them up, they are going to be through my Amazon affiliate link, which again allows you, as I've mentioned before, you can purchase whatever you like to purchase through Amazon, and then Amazon will give me a little tiny percentage of the purchase, which doesn't cost you anything. But if you make purchases through Amazon, that can help me out. So that's my EdTech thought. Consider adding a simple notebook to improve your life. And now for this episode's EdTech recommendation. I'd like to recommend to you that you try Extensis Fonts. Extensis is a developer specializing in font management software, and they have released what they're calling Extensis Fonts. And this is a new, free font panel for Google Docs that will let you access thousands of fonts from the Google Fonts collection. Extensis Fonts is available as a free add-on via Google Docs, and it provides a panel in the sidebar where you can browse, preview, and apply fonts directly within your Google documents. It is really flashy. I've installed it, and being somebody who designs things, for desktop publishing, and I'm very visual when I lay something out, you have a much easier way to access all of the fonts in the Google Font Collection. You can check out Extensis Fonts on their website at extensis.com. That's EXTENSIS.com. And of course, I will also link to the Chrome Store page that will allow you to install the Extensis Fonts add-on in just a couple of clicks. So check the show notes for that link so you can install it for free in your Google Docs today. So check out Extensis Fonts, and that's my House of EdTech recommendation. Now I'd like to share with you this episode's House of EdTech VIP. Congratulations to Natalie Krayenwenger. I met Natalie at ISTE for the BFC 530 chat meetup. She's a big fan of the podcast. We had some great conversation, and from learning about her, you need to connect with Natalie. She is so passionate about all things related to education. She's currently a 4th grade teacher and has been a quote-unquote Sherpa of learning since, as far back as she can remember, as she put it to me. But according to her diploma, she's been a quote-unquote real teacher since 2011. She enjoys reading, writing, social studies, math, and social emotional development, and that, in her opinion, is what makes her jump out of bed in the morning and what she is still thinking about at night as her head hits the pillow like a 50-pound weight. She hopes that through her blog, she can share her experiences with others, both the positive and the not-so-positive. She's real, people, and that's something I liked about her when I met her. Her blog helps herself to reflect and improve as an educator, and she can discuss topics of interest or concern and celebrate the miraculous events in life known as teaching and learning. When Natalie's not in her classroom, she can be found reading, cooking, coaching, running, knitting, tweeting, or having fun with her bearded and handy husband and their wiggly and uber-friendly bulldog, Copper. I 100% recommend that you check out Natalie on Twitter. Her username is nkrayenwenger, and that's NKRAYENVENGER, and you can check out her blog and website at whatsyourrush.net, and there'll be a link to both of those in the show notes. Congratulations, Natalie. You are a House of EdTech VIP. And that's going to do it for this episode of the House of EdTech, brought to you once again by Today's Meet and HelpHub.me. For more information about both, go to chrisnessy.com and click the banners for Today's Meet and HelpHub.me. Also on the website, you can check out the show notes for this episode, number 39, and I would love your thoughts on the information and resources shared in this episode. You can leave a comment on the show notes. You can also email me. The email is feedback@chrisnessy.com, and that's NESI. And you can also submit audio feedback. You can call the House of EdTech listener feedback line at 732-903-4869. And I just want to remind you again that I am looking for your ISTE and not at ISTE learning experiences. So please call the number, leave a message. And again, I'll be sharing those in a future episode. You can also connect with me on Voxer. My username is Mr. Nessie. And you can also connect with me on Twitter. And my username there is also Mr. Nessie. And just use the hashtag House of EdTech so I see your tweets. I want to say thank you to Justin Burkbickler for his recent iTunes review. Justin said, quote, "A fantastic show. Chris provides such wonderful and engaging topics. His audio quality is top-notch, and guests are amazing. I've already adapted many ideas in my own teaching. Better yet, Chris is very open to connecting with his listeners through Twitter and Voxer." Absolutely, Justin, and congratulations to you on launching your podcast, EDU Road Trip, which you can also find in iTunes, I believe, at the time that this is being released, Or you can reach out to Justin, and he is Mr. B Teacher, and that's Mr.B_B_Teacher. If you also enjoy the House of EdTech podcast and you haven't left an iTunes review yet, please do so. Your 5-star rating and positive review will help keep the House of EdTech front and center for other educators and really anybody who would be interested in the content to discover it and, of course, enjoy it. You can also show your support through patreon.com, and you can go to patreon.com/houseofedtech to learn how you can contribute to the podcast. On the next episode of House of EdTech, I will be speaking with Miss Stephanie Ryan, and she is a tech star from the great state of Texas. I'll be releasing episode number 40. Holy cow, can you believe it? 40 episodes? Episode 40 will be released on July 19th, 2015. Once again, thank you for listening. Thank you for all your support for the Educator's Voice Award earlier this year, which has resulted in receiving an actual Educator's Voice Award. I really appreciate it. And remember, using technology isn't difficult. Just give it a try. The House of EdTech is a proud member of the Education Podcast Network. The Education Podcast Network. Podcasts for educators, podcasts by educators. For more, go to edupodcastnetwork.com.